Morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. So, meron lang ako statement. We have a short statement dun sa suspension ng iyakat ng revised travel guidelines. Una sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po ako kay Secretary Crispin Remulla for heeding the public's clamor for suspending the Interagency Council Against Trafficking's revised guidelines on departure formalities, as this is a welcome development. Ito po ay nagpapatunay na nakikinig at sensitive ang mga agencies ng gobyerno at ang DOJ Secretary sa pulso ng sambayanan. Kakapasa lang namin po kagabi ng isang unnumbered Senate resolution na naghihiling sa DOJ at sa IACAT na suspendihin muna ang implementation ng draft revised guidelines para mapag-aralan ng mabuti ang bagong patakaran ng mga requirements na ito. As I mentioned in my speech yesterday, nasa loob po ng ating konstitusyon. Nakalagay po sa Article 3, Section 6 ng ating konstitusyon, ang right to travel by every Filipino. Karapatan po natin yan. At ang konstitusyon, hindi po yan recommendatory, yan po ay mandatory. Kaya nung inilabas po ng iyakat itong mga guidelines na ito, una po ang Senado na umalma at nagalit na bakit naman pong gagawin ito na ayon sa ating konstitusyon, which is the main law of the land, na pwede naman po magbiyahe unimpeded ang ating mga kababayan. Kaya natutuwa rin po ako sa bilis na naging action ni Secretary Remulla sa hiling po ng ating mga senador. Hindi lamang ako yan at we were seconded and of course there's a unanimous approval by all senators to review the new guidelines for travel. Kasi napaka-prohibitive. Number one, napakarami mga requirements na kailangan i-submit. For example, meron pang affidavit na manggagaling sa consular office or embassy na pupuntahan nyo, lalo na kung may sponsor po sa inyo doon. Para, let's say, lagyan natin, may kamag-anak po kayo sa Estados Unidos, gusto nyong bisitahin yung kamag-anak nyo, kailangan pa po ng kamag-anak nyo kumuha ng isang affidavit sa consular office ng tinitirahan nila or sa embahada na kayo mismo ang magsusponsor, sila mismo magsusponsor sa inyo. That, I think, is a very prohibitive requirement, no? Aside from bringing your original birth certificate. And tanong ko nga sa inyo, nasa inyo pa ba yung original birth certificate nyo? Parang true copy na lang galing sa NSO. Yung aking birth certificate is 54 years old. Siguro hindi ko na mahanap yung original nun. No? So, napakahirap ng mga requirements nila. And again, sa tingin po namin na labag po ito sa konstitusyon. At sabi nga po ng ating mga kasamaan, kung hindi po isususpindi ang requirements for further discussion, there was also authority by the Senate to allow us to file through our Senate Legal Department a petition for temporary restraining order with the Supreme Court on the grounds that it is against the constitutional provision of Article 3, Section 6. So, itong initial victory is a product of the public's vigilance. No? Nakikinig po tayo sa publiko, sa pulso ng bayan, lalo na sa mga social media comments, social media posts, sa mga nangyayari sa ating mga kababayan, lalo na mga na-offload. We'd like to put on record, in 2022, 32,000 po ng ating mga kababayan, 32,000 passengers ay in-offload ng Bureau of Immigrations. Only 1.4% doon ay nahuling human trafficking. 1.4%. So, ibig po sabihin, yung 98.5% ay biktima. Hindi ng human trafficking, kundi sa pag-aabuso ng isang ahensya. Kasi sino mambabayad ng ticket? Yung ticket, pinakamababa ng presyo ng ticket, 19,000 pesos. Yung hotel, di ba, babayad po kayo ng hotel, prepaid yun. Kailangan bayaran mo muna bago magbiyahe. Dahil alam mo, na hihingi po yan ng Bureau of Immigration natin dito at posible pagdating mo sa bansang yun, hihingi din po yan ng immigration officials doon. So, pag in-offload po kayo, in this case, 32,000 of our kababayans in-offload po last year, ang laki po ng perwisyo sa kanila yun. in terms of their economic standing. Many of them, siguro, first-time travelers, marami sa kanila gusto magbiyahe kasama ka ng kanilang pamilya. Ilang libo ang nawala sa kanila na piso, no? Ilang libong piso, siyempre ilang araw din po ng perwisyo yan, pag-iiyak ng mga anak nila na gusto sana nila mag-Disneyland sa Hong Kong, pina-offload naman ng Bureau of Immigration. So, I'm thankful that the Senate rallied behind these resolutions yesterday. I'm thankful to the Secretary for heeding the suspension calls of the Senate, and maybe we can have a further discussion on this on the succeeding hearings to come, particularly on the issue on the travel guidelines. So thank you.
Sir, so for clarification, magkakaroon pa rin po ng Senate hearing regarding this issue?
Yes, because first of all, we thank them for the suspension kasi September 3, Sunday na dapat ma-implement yan. So suspend muna nila. But at the same time, they have to explain to us how did they come up with these guidelines? Ano ba ang pagbabasihan nila dito sa mga guidelines na ito? Unang-una, wala namang batas na nagsasabi dapat mag-submit ka ng original birth certificate, na mag-submit ka ng affidavit from the consular office of your destination. Wala namang batas na nagsasabi nun eh. So, in the absence of law, we want to ask them their basis for these added requirements for Filipinos to travel abroad. Sabi ko nga darating na ng panahon, kasi yan ang gusto ng ating pamahalaan. Sabi ng pamahalaan, ang ilang plano is by 2028, maging middle income economy na po tayo. Ibig po sabihin, mas marami sa ating mga kababayan mag-graduate from poverty threshold to middle income economic, middle income economic yung status. Yeah, so middle income economic status. With that being the case, they will have more spending power. Meron po silang mga tinatawag na savings, additional savings, at baka gusto po nilang bumiyahe for the first time kasama na kanilang mga pamilya. So, it makes no sense na pipigilan mo itong mga first-time travelers and yung mga gustong umikot sa ibang bansa kasama ng kanilang pamilya at ma-offload po sila. That's basically economic profiling. If there's racial profiling in some countries in the prohibition of travel, in our country, it seems like economic profiling. Kung barok ang English mo, baluktot ang pagsalita mo, kagad-agad i-offload ka or you're up for secondary screening. Hindi maganda yon. And it is also a cause for concern, especially in corruption. It will be another layer of possible corruption. Kasi yung secondary screening will be in private rooms. Kung pag-usapan nila dun, kasunduan na lang, magkasunduan na lang sila. Kawawa naman natin mga kababayan. At kung hindi ka lalabas o hindi kayo sang-ayon sa kanilang kasunduan, baka ma-offload ka. At kawawa naman po ang ating mga pasero. And that's why, as Senator Escudero said yesterday, less discretion, less corruption. If there's more discretion on the part of the agency officials to do certain things that are not within the boundaries of the law, then that is open to more corruption. Yes.
Sabi po ng iyakan kasi the purpose ng revised travel guidelines ay para labanan ng human trafficking. So, anong dapat nilang gawin para ma-address naman yung human trafficking?
Kasama na yun sa ating mga pag-usapan sa hearing na what were the reasons why you had these stricter guidelines. Alam po natin to combat human trafficking. But there are ways of doing it. Why don't we target the illegal recruiters? Why don't we target the human traffic syndicates? Yan ang kailangan gawin. Case in point, 32,000 Filipinos were offloaded last year. Only 1.4% were human traffickers. So, palpak ang kanilang selection ng ating mga kababayan pagdating dito sa human trafficking. They have to have a more concrete formula to be able to apprehend these violators of human trafficking. Secondly, maybe they can come up with a better system na computerized na lang lahat. Kung gusto mong biyahe, bago ka magbiyahe, gusto nila mag-upload ka ng birth certificate lahat, i-upload na lang natin sa isang server or isang website ng Bureau of Immigration, which by the way can also cause privacy issues. Kasi may privacy issues din yan. For example, yung bank certificate mo, then you're opening yourself up to other issues, no, like kidnapping or kidnap for ransom or and other personal security issues. So there is data privacy that is involved there. Kaya nga tumututol kami dahil yung mga requirements nila also will as we see violate data privacy laws. Kaya there are other ways of fighting human trafficking, di ba? Marami namang bansa na talagang adikain nila ay labanan ng human trafficking. But they don't prevent their countrymen from leaving their country. Di ba? Call na kasi yun ng Bureau, call na kasi yun ng immigration ng bansa na pupuntahan mo. For example, pupunta ka ng Japan. Dapat wala nang tanong yung ating Bureau of Immigration dito. Dahil kailangan mo ng visa eh. So kailangan mo ng visa, napakahigpit ng visa requirements ng katulad ng Japan, katulad ng EU, katulad ng Estados Unidos, napakahigpit nun. So kung lumusot ka na doon on the visa requirement issue alone, huwag ka na dapat hinga ng documentation. Dahil dumaan na ng butas ng karayom yung mga kababayan natin. So these are things that we would like to discuss with them and how we can prevent human trafficking but on a more concrete manner. Because as I said, asking for these requirements was a failure in 2022. Asking for these requirements was a failure in 2022 dahil sa 32,000 pasahero na in-offload last year, 1.4% lamang ang may kasong human trafficking. The others were unfortunate passengers and victims of this reprehensible system na talagang kawawang ating mga Filipino travelers.
Sir, feasible po ba yung suggestion ni Senator Escudero na i-reimburse?
Maganda yun.
Yung 32,000?
Yes, I support that. I support the position of Senator Chis Escudero where kung may i-offload man ang Bureau of Immigration, charge to their account. Meron kasi sila mga fees na kinokolekta at milyon-milyon yan. That's up to hundreds of millions in the Bureau of Immigration funding. So they'll be more careful who to offload. Kasi siyempre sila babayad nun pag nag-offload sila. Meron din silang kailangan ibigay na ayuda sa mga na-offload. Kasi isipin mo, pamilya kayo, 5 kayo, husband and wife, 3 anak. Pupunta kayong Hong Kong, i-offload mo sila. Magkano ng ginastos ng pamilya doon? It's not fair. It is not fair. And then, ganun na lang, ipa-offload mo sila, natalo sila ng 100,000 pesos, sorry na lang, sasabihin mo sa kanila, sorry na lang. That doesn't cut it for us in the Senate. Hindi kami papayag nun. Hindi dapat pumayag ang gobyerno dyan. So, we need to still continue with the hearing to find out and discuss these issues. Kasi kung hindi natin pag-usapan to sa hearing, hindi natin mahalungkat, hindi po natin malalaman kung ano talagang punong dulo nila, kung ano ba't nilang tinutulak ito. So, and of course, on our side, we will present to them why this should not be the guidelines to be placed, to be put in place, and other measures should be taken to combat human trafficking, rather than harassing our kababayans na gusto lang makabiyahe sa ibang bansa for whatever purpose, for a good time, for vacation, for soul searching, for educational purposes. Call na ng kababayan natin yun eh. Wala na silang pakialam dun. Basta importante, umuwi lang sila after their designated visa dates.
Possible ba, sir, maging liable yung mga mapapatunayan na intentionally immigration officers na parang intentionally ginigrill lang nila yung isang pasahero?
Well, may karapatan naman po yung immigration officers natin i-grill yung mga pasahero. Ang pakiusap lang namin sa kanila, katulad binanggit ni pakiusap ni Senator Bato de la Rosa kahapon, na sana naman may puso ang mga immigration officers. They should always put themselves in the shoes of the passenger, di ba? Kasi siguro babiyahe din yan once upon a time or in the future, babiyahe din yung mga immigration officers. Lagay mo ang sarili mo sa kanilang kalagayan. And dapat may konting puso. Sabi nga, may isang video nakita ko, umaapela talaga yung pasahero. boss, lilipad ng eroplano namin. Yung pamilya ko gusto lang makabakasyon. Hindi pa rin eh. Yung mga videos on YouTube, hindi na sila pumapayag. Tapos pinapa-offload, umiiyak yung mga bata, umiiyak yung asa. Huwag tayong ganyan. Us in government, we in government, should show efficient service, but also show service with heart na may puso, na pagmamalasakit sa ating mga kababayan. That's our job, is to make the life of our people much easier, the lives of our people much easier. Hindi pagperwisyo lamang at power tripping. So, umapila kami sa Bureau of Immigration, although nasuspend na itong IACAT guidelines, let's have a heart for our passengers. Kung wala naman pong red flag, kung walang kaso, walang hold departure order, walang record na nag-overstaying sa isang bansa, wala namang record na nag-TNT sa isang bansa at nagtrabaho sa isang bansa na meron talagang record na, di hayaan mo na makabiyahe ating mga kababayan. Lalo na sa mga first-time travelers.
Sir, aside from the unconstitutionality,
Yes.
part din ba ng, o dahilan din ba ng worries yung corruption din sa immigration?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And actually, in-expose na yung Senado yung tanimbala, naalala mo yung tanimbala. Naitigil po natin yan. Pati yung Pastilla scam under Senator Hontiveros, natigil na rin po. File natin ng kaso ang napakaraming mga Bureau of Immigration officials. Marami sa kanila natanggal na. So yes, this is very much prone to corruption. When there is a secondary level of checks in a private area, dyan po ang pwedeng mangyari mga milagro. Kaya sabi ko nga, let's not give them the opportunity. Let's not give the opportunity where there could be corruption in this particular case. And I think, as I mentioned, three major issues. The burdensome, very expensive, and very difficult requirements that they're asking for us is unnecessary. And it is, for us, illegal and unconstitutional. Second, the issue on corruption. It is prone to corruption. Third, it is also it's a violation of the anti-privacy laws. No? So, we have to take note and consider that. Kaya gusto nga namin kausapin yung IACAT dahil dyan. Kasi kung hihingin mo ng mga bank certificates, yung place of residence mo, may mga title pa, may hiningi pa sila mga title proof of education, proof of occupation, kung saan ka nagtatrabaho, that can be prone to anti-privacy laws, violation of privacy laws. So, definitely there are several issues there that has to be resolved by the IACAT before they implement these guidelines. And we'll put it in a free and open hearing para imbitahin din po namin. Ang gusto nga namin yan, sana mangyari, yung mga naperwisyo, itong 32,000 na na-offload, sana may maimbita po kami ng mga 5 o 10 man lang para mabigay po nila ang kanilang storya. No? Ma-share po nila sa atin, no? That they can share their stories on what had happened to them and why were they offloaded and how they felt after that.
Welcome sila, sir.
Welcome sila. It will be an open hearing. We're waiting for Senator Grace po under the Public Services Committee to conduct the hearing and the hearing date. Hopefully next week, meron na po tayong hearing for that. Maybe late next week, we'll have a hearing on this issue. And welcome po sila. Lahat ng mga na-offload, lahat na nag-post ng video sa YouTube, will give you the protection in the Senate to be able to air your side.
Sir, ibang topic lang.
Sure.
Basta China nag-red dot ng map.
Oo nga.
Tingin niyo doon.
Well, may kasabihan, no? Misery loves company. No? Dumami na yung miserable na yun sa buong mundo, hindi lamang ang Pilipinas. Sinakop na nila po yung India, merong border dispute din sila sa India. At officially, naglabas na po sila ng mapa at may kinain din silang lupa sa India. Biro mo, India at China magkasama sa BRICS, yung BRICS organization. That's an economic and security organization of China, Brazil, India, and the Soviet, Russia, and South Africa. Kung sinakop pa rin nga nila yung isang alay nila na kaibigan nila, lalo na tayo, yung mga bansa dito sa Southeast Asia. Sinakop na rin nila yung napakaraming isla ng Vietnam, ng Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. No? So, talagang nakakagulat po yan. But then again, I think it will solidify support for the arbitral ruling wherein the 9-dash line was quashed. No? Hindi recognize ng the tribunal or the PCA itong 9-dash line nila. Ginawa na nga nilang 10-dash line, pinalaki pa, pinalawak pa. So I think this way we'll be able to galvanize more support from other countries. I think mas maraming bansa nang susuporta sa stand ng Pilipinas to condemn and to appeal to China not to follow that ridiculous 10-dash line because it violates the sovereignty of not only the Philippines now, but several countries all around the region.
Does this highlight the need that it's like that over the Philippines na ipasa yung maritime zones?
Yes, that is a priority of the Senate. We commit to you by end of the year, before December, we will we'll deliberate it during the budget deliberations. Sasabayin namin to. Ipapasa namin yung Maritime Zones Act ni Senator Tolentino and several senators who have filed. We're going to pass it. Thank you.
Paano pwede describe yung recent na ginawa ng China after na ilang beses na, di ba? Recently may parang appeal din yung gobyerno.
Well, meron tayong bagong envoy to China, special envoy to China, which is former Secretary and now Ambassador Teddy Boy Locsin. Nag-usap kami briefly nung isang araw pagdating po dito, pagbisita po sa amin dito ni Foreign Minister ng Great Britain, United Kingdom. And sabi niya, they will exert more efforts, both bilaterally and internationally, to condemn the actions of China and the repeated incursions and dangerous maneuvers in the West Philippine Sea. And I think we'll not be alone this time. Marami na tayo. I think nag-file na po ng formal protest ng India, nag-file na po ang formal protest ng Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam. And I think that will speed up the process for a code of conduct in the South China Sea. Kasi medyo delayed Napakabagal ng galaw ng ASEAN countries pagdating sa code of conduct. Kasi meron din mga bansa sa ASEAN na medyo malapit sa China. But now, with this new 10-dash line ng China, feeling ko mapapabilis yung code of conduct between ASEAN countries because of this more brazen occupation of several countries. And of course, more brazen, more brazen disrespect for one's sovereignty, for this country's sovereignty. These countries are THESE, not these. So, thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, sure. May hearing tayo ng Tuesday. Nagtawag na po ng hearing si Senator Bato de la Rosa, I think Tuesday, itong Martes, pag-usapan itong mga issues on road rage. Alam mo, nakaka-alarma na dahil halos araw-araw na nagkakaroon po ng bugbugan, pukpukan, saksakan, at pagbunot ng baril dito sa issue ng road rage. Obviously, pag medyo grabbing traffic na dito sa ating bansa, medyo sobra-sobra na rin yung traffic sa ating bansa, magkakaproblema talaga sa road rage. But it does not give you the authority to abuse cyclists, motorcycle riders, or anyone in the public, the public concerned. It does not give anyone any rights to abuse and violate human rights of any individual that are plying our highways and road networks. So, ang gusto po natin, maybe in aid of legislation, either we will pass a special law particularly on road rage, or we'll just make sure we get the government agencies, gawin natin na talagang tuparin ng government agencies ang mga iba't ibang panukala na naging batas na protektahan ng ating mga motorcyclists, cyclists, and road riding public. So, may mga options tayo. May panukala, the safe passage, no? Safe pathways. We have a safe pathways law that was exclusively for the use of our cyclists. So sabi nga ni Senator Pia, na isang author ng ating resolution, paano naman itong pangako natin na may safe pathways sa mga motorcyclists and bicycle riders na abusuhin itong mga katulad ni Mr. Gonzales na babanggain na lang at pistol whip pa at papalo pa nila ng ulo ng kanilang mga baril. So, for me, there are several laws that were violated kay Mr. Gonzales. Number one, violation of the firearms law. You are not supposed to, you're only supposed to use your firearms, licensed firearms, especially if you have a permit to carry. So that's the question, kung meron ba siyang permit to carry. You can only utilize the firearm when it is an emergency. For example, your life is threatened. And that's the only time. And there's also particular guidelines on that particular time when your life is threatened. Pangalawa, tinanggal niya to, linabag ang batas dahil linabas niya yung baril niya, wala naman dalang armas yung kanyang kalaban. So obviously, it's an abuse of authority. So there are human rights violations being done to the cyclist. So maraming mga multiple cases, no? At hindi lamang suspension ng driver's license yan. Sa ibang bansa, sa DMV, if you are caught driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, sa Estados Unidos, automatic cancellation of license mo yan. They cancel it. Hindi ka na makapagmaneho. So, dapat dito, hindi lang show cause order, hindi lang suspension of driver's license. Dapat automatic when you're in a road rage incident and you use your vehicle to harass or to violate the human rights of others, dapat yan automatic cancellation of license. Dapat yan automatic cancellation of license to possess and own firearms and cancellation of all the permits to carry and confiscation of all firearms. Confiscation dapat kagad gawin nila. And let's see what other penal provisions we can also recommend to be placed under a new road rage law, anti-road rage law.
Sir, kaya lang natatapos yung po bang Senate mag-o-offer din ng assistance?
We will offer him protection for his testimony if he so wishes, kung gusto niya. Kasi yan nga ang medyo mahirap sa batas natin. Kailangan mag-file ng complaint yung cyclista para ma-actionan at makasuhan itong taong ito. But there are times when government can intervene. Kaya, di ba mga cases filed in court, the people versus so-and-so. Di ba? The people versus Philippines versus so-and-so. The people of the Philippines versus so-and-so. So, not necessarily na kailangan mag-file ng case ang cyclista or file a complaint. Because, for example, in an issue of murder, kung saan binangga ng isang driver ang isang tao, syempre patay na yung tao. Paano niya kakasuhan yung driver? That's why it is the people of the Philippines versus so-and-so, Juan de la Cruz. So, in this case, under that bill that we're planning to file, automatic motu proprio, the DOJ can file a case under the new laws, a special law on road rage. So, hindi na po natin kailangan na mag-complain pa ang oppressed or offended party.
Mapapatan niyo po kaya si Mr. Gonzales?
Well, if he doesn't, I don't know. We'll ask, mas mabuting tanungin natin si Senator Bato, but I'm sure iimbitahin yun. At Senator Grace ba? Lead committee? Senator Bato. It's Senator Bato. I'm sure iimbitahin po natin yan. Pag hindi siya dumating, it's the prerogative of the chairman of the committee to file a subpoena for him. And I will sign. I would gladly sign the subpoena for him to attend.
Kailangan siya kumatin.
Well, depende sa mga hiling ng mga senador. When the investigation is ongoing and we need his testimony, particularly on what he had done after the incident. Kasi ang sabi niya, initially ang sabi niya, tinutukan niya ng baril, Tapos, maganda na, binalik daw niya yung baril niya sa bulsa niya, sa holster niya, at kinausap daw ng maayos. Nung nakita natin yung CCTV, na binatukan, hinabol at drinag pa niya, kinuyod pa niya yung bisikleta ng cyclista. So obviously, he was covering up. So definitely, it would be good to get a clear picture of what had transpired. Buti na lang may CCTV, buti na lang may kumuha nun at may CCTV. Alam mo, ang kawawa dito, ang napakaraming kababayan natin na inaabuso ng ganyan, na motorcycle riders and bicycle riders, na hindi nakaka-capture ng CCTV at hindi rin nakaka-capture ng individual video or blogger or may pasok o ma-file online. Alam mo, maraming ganyan nangyayari siguro araw-araw pero hindi na ibubulgar. At kawawa naman yung ating mga bicycle riders and motorcyclists. So, malaking issue to. Nagsama-sama lahat ng siklista ng bansa. Parang nag-rally sila behind this guy. So, we have to also show that the law is in favor of them in protecting them. Thanks.
Sabi kanina ng Dole, parang maramihan sila dun sa legend. Marami daw dapat basis para dun sa living wage.
Alam mo kaya hindi na ako nag-attend ng Dole kasi useless they'll always stay neutral. The Dole will always stay neutral, which I think is a misconception and it's a wrong position to take. They should not be neutral. They should always fight for the welfare of the laborers. Now, let me remind you, the 40 peso wage increase was only in NCR. Up to this day today, 350 pesos pa rin yung sa Mindanao ang minimum wage ng agricultural workers. Non-agricultural workers, a little less than 400 a day. Ba, ang presyo ba ng bigas doon ay mas mura kaysa dito? Pareho, last I checked, pareho pong presyo ng bigas sa Mindanao at dito sa Metro Manila. Yung presyo ba ng kuryente, mas mura doon kaysa dito? Last I checked, mas mahal ang presyo ng kuryente sa Mindanao kaysa NCR. Mas mura pa dito. So, the cost of living has increased all over the country. And they need that decent wage para makabuhay sila ng disente. Kaya itutulak talaga namin yan. We're pushing that before the year ends, again, by December, we'll pass the legislative wage bill. It may not be a priority in the LEDAC, but what is important is the Senate will make a stand. We'll pass it here. Pag naipasa na namin yan, lalapitan ko na po ang ating Pangulo at makikiusap po ako sa kanya. And pag pumayag po siya, ay hopefully the mababang kapulungan ng lower house will be able to pass a similar measure so that by next year it will be a great Christmas gift for the Filipino people for 2024. But we need it. We need it. Talagang hirap na hirap ang kababayan natin. And they'll say, bumaba na nga yung GDP dahil siguro sa pagmahal ng mga bilihin. Alam mo, number one, kung tinaas nyo yung sweldo ng ating mga kababayan, sa tingin nyo, itatago nila yun? Hindi nila itatago yun. Gagastusin din nila yun. Dadali nila yung mga anak nila sa Jollibee, sa McDonald's, pupunta sila ng mall, bibili din po sila ng mga regalo, pasalubong pa sa mga anak nila. So, it will go back to the economy. It may be able to help the increase of the GDP of our country. And it is not at no cost to taxpayer. Kasi yan po ay it will be taken from the big corporations and companies and MSMEs. So, kaya naman po nilang gastusin, kaya naman po nilang itong dagdag gastos. At ang matutuwa dito, ang milyon-milyon nating mga kababayan na manggagawa. And it shouldn't only be minimum wage earners, guys. Ako, across the board, even for all of you but with the higher wage, above minimum wage earners, dapat bigyan din kayo ng dagdag sahod. Alam mo, binanggit ko nga sa hearing ng DBCC, binanggit ko lahat ng malalaking kumpanya, Ayala Corp, Aboitiz Equity, PLDT, PAL, all record-breaking income for 2023. Record-breaking na mas mataas pa sa post-pandemic. Siguro it's about time now to share. Sabi nga nila, there should be now a new tax for the rich. Aba, instead of taxing the rich, let's just force the rich to pay proper salaries to their workers and employees. Mas malaking impact niyan kasi you just tax the rich, pupunta na naman yan sa mga corrupt projects. And bigay mo na lang diretso sa tao, instead of taxing the rich and the rich companies, why don't we just allow them, why don't we pass the minimum wage and make them pay better wages for their workers? Tataas pang productivity ng mga kumpanya nila. So that's that advocacy still, we're focused on that, laser focused. Ano lang, marami lang issue na dumarating. Pero mabubulaga na lang kayo. We will take it up on the floor and pass it. As our advocacy, as a shared advocacy of the Senate. Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.